Welcome back, folks. This is Suave, and today we're going to be taking a look at all of the blue cards for the Set 1 Romance Dawn. This is the first set for the One Piece card game. We're going to be making a little tier list, and we're going to be seeing how all of these blue cards compare to each other. So, without further ado, let's begin. Like always, we're going to be starting off with our leader cards. So first off, we have our blue starter deck leader. That is Crocodile. Crocodile is a 5 life, 5000 power, activate once per turn, Dawn -4. Return up to one character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. The bounce ability is always going to be relevant to the meta. No matter what, bouncing is going to be very powerful. So that's a very standard leader ability for him. Next up, we have Doflamingo. Doflamingo is the new mono blue leader for the set 1 set. It's going to be Dawn ×2 when attacking, and then you have to rest an additional Dawn, so it's 3 Dawn in total. When he attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a 7 Warlords of the Sea type character card with a cost of 4 or less, you may play that card rested. So it's kind of weird because you do get blue does have control as to what you can draw off the top of your deck, but it does come out rested, but it is still a pretty nice ability to get a character out free, especially if they have an on-play ability. Now again, we're just looking at these leader cards as a reference. We're not ranking these leaders, we're just using them as a point of reference so that we can see what we have going on for all these blue cards. So next up we have Kaido. He is a blue purple leader. Dawn ×1, your turn, once per turn. When one of your opponent's characters is KO'd, you may add one Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So he has a pretty much a ramp ability built up to himself as long as you keep KOing things. He is only 4 life, as we see with all the double colored leaders, so it's sort of a setback, but blue and purple together is very powerful. And last but not least is our last leader card here from the set 1 Romance Dawn. That is Crocodile, who is able to use the blue cards of this set. He has Dawn ×1. When you activate an event, you may draw one card if you have 4 or less cards in your hand and haven't drawn a card using this leader's effect during this turn. Very powerful card draw effect. Going to be very event heavy, so we'll see what kind of events we got going on in this set. Alright, so let's go ahead and start things off for the blue cards. This is the first card we got going on. This is Arlong. Arlong is a 4 cost for 5000 power with a slash attribute, counter +1000. Dawn ×1, his main ability, you may rest this character, choose one card from your opponent's hand and reveal it. If the revealed card is an event, place one card from your opponent's life at the bottom of the owner's deck. So you're basically it's almost like Banish, where you're kind of trashing that life and they can't use it immediately, but it is sort of like an RNG type of thing where Arlong is, you're sort of looking at the event, you're trying to look for that event, but if the person has very few cards left in their hand and they have some active Dawn, chances are there's going to be an event in there. You just still got to look for it, so there is still like a guess play. He does have to rest himself, but he's not really going to be attacking if you're going to be using that ability all the time, but he does have 5000 power, so it's kind of okay to counter him, especially if you're with blue. Whether or not he's going to be very playable, I think he might be seeing some play. We're just going to put him in B tier for now. I'm not really sure where he's fitting right now. I think there is a deck for him, but I'm not sure what specifically that's going to be. But he's definitely not useless. It's a very powerful ability, and I think you're going to be able to telegraph some things with him, but we'll see how he pans out in the future. For now, he's going to be in B tier for me. Okay, next up, let's see what card we have next over here, and that's going to be Alvida. Alvida is a 2 cost for 3000 power with the strike attribute, +2000 counter. What's really good to see +2000 on any card. You may trash one card from your opponent's hand, or sorry, from your hand, then return one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less to their hand. So she's kind of interesting because you normally don't want to trash cards from your hand, but she does have a very powerful ability. It's going to just be bouncing a 3 cost or less, which could or could not be very significant depending on what you're bouncing. Maybe a blocker to win the game. I think early on she might not see a lot of play because who cares if you bounce a 1, 2, or 3 cost, they're just going to play it again. I mean, they do lose a little bit of tempo. Alvida with a +2000 counter though. As far as mono blue goes, I'm not sure if there's a lot of +2000 counter ability or options right now. So I think Alvida will see a lot of play. I don't think she's B tier. She's probably going to go at A tier for now. That might change later in the future when we see more options and going on what is going on. But she's only a 2 cost, so she's not too bad. For now, we'll put her in A tier. Maybe she'll be B tier later on. All right, let's see who else we got going on next. That is Vergo. Vergo is a 5 cost for 7,000 power vanilla character with counter plus 1,000. This is really significant because Vergo is the first vanilla character that we've seen who is more than just a 4 cost. So 5 cost for 7,000 power is pretty significant. It's actually really hard to swing into 7,000 power characters. And you have to put in some resources to take them out. And with blue, they're very defensive. And he can probably keep Vergo alive for quite a bit. I see Vergo being A tier personally. I think he's going to be very powerful in a lot of decks. Probably not an automatic 4 times though, depending on what the deck that you're using. But when you see him and you can play him with 5 Dawn on the field, you're going to be very happy having that 7,000 power out on the field. Next up we got here going on is Dawn Krieg. Dawn Krieg is a 4 cost for 6,000 power vanilla plus 1,000 counter. Krieg Pirate Straight, not a whole lot of support for Dawn Krieg right now, only because we have seen some other vanilla cards already, like the Pacifista for blue. So I don't think there's really any support here for Dawn Krieg when we already have a 4 cost 6,000 vanilla, and that Pacifista actually has support with Sentomaru, and so Dawn Krieg unfortunately is going to go to the card fodder tier. So next up we have Crocodile. Crocodile is the super rare for the blue set, the 7 cost 7,000 plus 1,000 counter. We always love seeing counters on there. Banish, so whenever he attacks and makes deals damage to your opponent's life, that card will be banished and they cannot put it to their hand. It goes straight to the trash. When he has 1 Dawn attached to him, blue event cards, so only blue event cards in your hand, cost 1 less to play. All these blue events are usually a 2 cost, so if you could bring them down to just 1 cost, that's going to be really awesome because that's less Dawn that you have to have use up, or have to have active at the end of your turn in order to be able to use them for counters. So Crocodile, easily S tier for having not only good stats, but a good ability in Banish, but also another good ability in just investing 1 Dawn in order to reduce all your blue events down to 1 Dawn, or 1 less Dawn. I keep getting mixed up with that. Next up, what we got going on is Gekko Moria. Gekko Moria is a 4 cost for 5,000 power plus 1,000 counter. Your turn. If you have 5 or more cards in your hand, this character gains double attack. Double attack is always going to be very threatening. 4 cost for 5,000, not too bad. He might stick around a little bit, but there might be some things that take him out. But regardless, plus 1,000 counter. Blue will usually see blue likes to teeter around, depending on the deck that you're playing. They like to teeter around that 3-4 hand size. 5 or more in your hand, it's a little, I mean, it's doable, but it's one of those things where blue kind of always wants to teeter around a little bit lower than that. But I think Moria is definitely going to be seeing a lot of play just because of that double attack, and it's a very threatening type of ability. So we're going to put him up to A tier with Vergo and Alvida for now. Who we got next going on? Next, it is Caesar Clown. Caesar Clown is a 4 cost 5,000. Same stats like Moria, counter plus 1,000. On KO, play 1 Smiley card from your deck, then shuffle your deck. So he's kind of similar to some other cards that we've seen with on KO abilities, but this one he's going to thin out your deck, but it is reliant on him getting KO'd. And Smiley's kind of like a hit or miss type of thing. We'll see what he looks like later on. Caesar Clown himself, I think the Caesar Clown Smiley will see play, but I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. It's probably not as good as the A tiers that we've seen. Certainly not useless like card fodder. So we're just going to put him in B tier, and we'll put that as a baseline. But we're going to see what that Smiley is later on down the road, because next up we have a very powerful card, and that is Dracule Mihawk. So Mihawk is a 9 cost, 9,000 power. On play, place 1 character with a cost of 7 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. No counter on him. Very powerful stats, 9 for 9,000. Very powerful ability. So you can pretty much take out almost anybody. You ideally want to target a 6 or 7 cost in order to make them worth it. Anything less than that might be a little questionable, depending on the target, obviously. But you still want to get that 9,000 power on the field as soon as possible. 9 cost though, it's gonna really make the blue player need to have a board presence, a strong board presence, in order to play Mihawk, because if you're using 9 Dawn to bring him out, you're only going to have 1 Dawn left, and none of the events cost 1, and you can't put 1 Dawn on Crocodile if you have him on the field, because then you have 0 Dawn left, because now you have Mihawk that you just played for 9, so he's kind of weird. I don't think he's an automatic S tier where you want to put him in everything, but I think he's definitely useful where you want to at least have like 1 copy of Mihawk in there in that deck, and then when you draw into him, you're really happy that you drew into him, and then you use his ability, tuck one opponent away, pretty much for very little effort. You're just investing the 9 Dawn, but again, 9 Dawn is a very costly effort to put someone like him on the field. We're gonna put him in A tier though. We're gonna put him A tier. I think he's gonna see a good amount of play, but still very wary about that 9 cost. Okay, so next up we have Jinbe. Jinbe is a 4 cost for 2000 power. On play, place 1 character with a cost of 3 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Pretty standard ability that we've seen with a lot of these blue cards so far. He does have a trigger ability though, so trigger play this card. That's probably why he has no counter and he has very low stats for a 4 cost. He has a very powerful ability, 3 cost or less characters. There's a lot of 3 cost or less characters that you would want to just try to get rid of. He doesn't have the Warlord trait, so a lot of people were confused in the beginning, thinking that you can play him with the Doflamingo leader, but he's not compatible at all with the Doflamingo leader, unfortunately, because he doesn't have that Warlord trait. So he's kind of like a weird thing where blue will kind of want to see him, but also kind of not. Obviously, you would love to see him off the trigger so you can just play him for free. But Jinbe for 4 cost 2000. Obviously, it's a really good ability. I think he's going to see some play. I don't know if he's as good as some of the other ones. So I'm just going to put him in B tier for now. I could be wrong with that. He might be A tier. I just haven't had a whole lot of practice with putting him in a lot of decks right now, and I haven't seen a lot of other blue decks that other people use that include Jinbe in them. But we'll see how that pans out in the future. Next up, we have Smiley. So this is the one that you can fish out of your deck with Caesar Clown. He has a 3 cost for 1000 power. Counter plus 1000. Dawn times 1. On your turn only, this character gains plus 1000 power for each card in your hand. So the bigger hand size you have, the more powerful Smiley's going to be. On the flip side, Smiley's only going to be at 1000 power on your opponent's turn while he's rested after he just attacked. So he's going to be easy to take out. I think that's kind of why he's good, but he's also not good, because blue's kind of like, at least mono blue is kind of like in that weird tier where they want to balance around 3 to 4 cards in hand. So yeah, he's like a 4000 5000 power. You have to put 1 Dawn on him to activate his ability, so he might be like a 5 or 6000 power when he attacks. It's all right. I don't know if it's worth including him with Caesar Clown, and then you draw Smiley into your hands, and it just creates a little bit of awkwardness. So we're just gonna put him in B tier alongside with Caesar Clown. I think that's just where that combo belongs for now. Next up, we have Doflamingo. Don Quixote Doflamingo. This is the character card, 3 cost for 4000 power. Counter plus 1000. He has a blocker. Very nice to see more blockers in blue. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and return them to the top or bottom of the deck in any order. So this is very powerful because you get to choose whether you can put them in the top or the bottom. So you can, if there's 5 cards that you just don't want to see right now, just tuck them in the bottom and then try for the next cards that you're going to be drawing. If you do like seeing these cards, you get to rearrange them in any order and put them on the top of your deck, and then you can manipulate how you're going to play the next few turns. So easily, really good blocker, really good stats, 3 cost, 4000 power. 4000 power means he doesn't immediately die to Nico Robin from red, which is what we see with a lot of these little blockers. 3 cost does mean he still dies to Who's Who, but who cares? That ability is just really flexible, really powerful, easily S tier for me when it comes to these blue cards. So next up, we have one of the warlords again. We got Bartholomew Kuma. Bartholomew Kuma is a 4 cost for 5000 power. He is a blocker, another blocker. Counter plus 1000 on him, so that's pretty good to see. On KO, play one Pacifista card with a cost of 4 or less from your hand. He's kind of like a weird oddball because you have to make use of his ability by having a Pacifista in your hand. And so that kind of relies on having the combo in your hand. It's almost like having that ulti page 1 combo where you're not always going to get it, but when you do get it, you're kind of happy that you have it. Bartholomew Kuma, whether or not he's as good as A tier, or is he down to B tier? I don't think he's S tier personally. He is probably going to, just because he has the counter plus 1000, I think I'm going to put him on A tier. And that's just because we're going to see another Pacifista card later down the road that a lot of people are using. And so for now, I think Bartholomew Kuma is going to see a lot of play. So let's go ahead and put him over to A tier with the rest of these guys, and then see how he fares off in the future, especially when we see these other Pacifista cards. Because next is the Pacifista. The new Pacifista from the set 1, which is a 4 cost for 5000 power. He is a blocker. He has a passive ability. You may have more than 4 copies of this card in your deck, so you can pretty much meme it up and put I don't know, like 30 copies of this Pacifista in your deck. Just make a whole deck full of Pacifistas, Kuma, Santamaros, and just go to town. I think this Pacifista is the one that you want to look for over the 4 cost 6000 vanilla Pacifista, only because the 5000 to 6000 power is kind of negligible. What you really are more important about is seeing that blocker. Blocker is very important in this type of game to be able to pretty much block any big attacks or any attacks for that matter. 5000 power means you can counter it attacks and probably save these Pacifistas if you really wanted to very easily, especially with blue. So Pacifistas, we're going to put them on the same tier as Bartholomew Kuma. I think Pacifistas are going to see a lot of play, especially when you see a bunch of those meme decks coming out with like 30 copies of them. It's going to be crazy. All right, so next up, we have over here a vanilla card that is Bellamy. Bellamy is a 2 cost for 4000 counter plus 1000 with a Dressrosa keyword trait. 2 cost for 4000 vanilla. We've seen those already. I don't think there's a lot of support for Bellamy, so right now Bellamy is going to be in the card fodder tier. Maybe we'll see some more support for Dressrosa keywords, but for now that's not happening. So Bellamy, you're unfortunately going to be in the card fodder, because next up we got Perona. Perona is a 1 cost for 2000 power, counter plus 1000. That's always good to see. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and return them to the top or bottom of the deck in any order. Same thing that we saw with Doflamingo. The only difference is that she's not a blocker, but she is a 1 cost instead of a 3 cost. So I think she's actually going to see a lot of play, just because having that type of manipulation, that ability, especially with some of these blue leaders, is going to be very powerful to have. And only for a 1 cost, at the very least, if you don't really need her ability, she's always going to be a counter in your hand. So for my thing, Perona, easily going to be S tier, because she just has a really useful ability and she's always going to be relevant in my eyes. So next up we have here Boa Hancock, the Empress herself, 4 cost for 5000 power. She has a counter of plus 1000 on her. She is a blocker, a really good ability here. Dawn times 1 when attacking or on block. It doesn't matter which one, it could be either or. Draw 1 card if there are 5 or less cards in your hand. Blue is almost always going to have 5 or less cards in their hand. That ability that she has on her is very flexible. She is a super rare. Because of that flexibility, having the counter on her, having really good stats, easily S tier. She's going to be relevant in any deck that you put her in. Getting raw card draw in general is just really good, especially in this game. So S tier immediately for Boa Hancock. Next up we have Miss All Sunday. Miss All Sunday is going to be a 3 cost for 1000 power. She is a blocker. On KO, if your leader has the Baroque Works type, return 1 events card from your trash to your hand. So right now she's only relevant with Crocodile, either the blue Crocodile or the blue purple Crocodile leader. Both of them very powerful leaders. Miss All Sunday as a blue card in general, obviously you're only going to want to use her in those 2 leaders. She has a very useful ability in being able to get any events card back into your hand from your trash. If she wasn't shoehorned to just that type, she would be S tier, but because of the type restriction, I'll put her in A tier. That's kind of what I've been doing with some of these cards that are just restricted to that type of card. But when you do have her in, when you have a Crocodile leader, you're pretty much going to include 4 copies of her automatically, just because it's such a good busted ability, and she's a blocker too on top of that. Next up, we have here Miss Doublefinger. Miss Doublefinger is a 3 cost for 4,000 power, counter plus 1,000 on KO. Draw 1 card. This one's kind of weird. In order for her to always be relevant, you always have to invest 1 Dawn in her in order to be able to swing for 5,000. That way, she's always a threat, and people are more incentivized to want to KO her. But at the same time, no one's going to want to KO her because she draws you a card. So she's kind of in that weird in-between thing. She doesn't really have anything else going on other than the Baroque Works trait, which means that she might work in decks that run heavy on Baroque Works. Whether or not she's going to see a whole lot of play is the question. Is having a threat that sticks on the board but requiring 1 Dawn necessary? It's definitely going to be relevant. This was kind of a weird one because I haven't had a whole lot of testing with her, but I think for now I'll probably put her in B tier with she'll probably see some play, only because I think she'll only see play in Baroque Works decks, and even outside of, or sorry, within Baroque Works decks, I think she's going to be very limited, but she'll definitely see some play. I'm just going to put her in B tier for now. Not sure how that'll play out later, but we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have Mocha. Mocha is a vanilla 3 cost 5,000 counter plus 1,000 punk hazard trait. Like some of these other vanillas, not a whole lot of support going on. So unfortunately, Mocha, a really weird card too to have, but it was fun to see her. But regardless, she's gonna go down here to the card fodder tier. I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of room for Mocha right now. Next up, we have Monet. So Monet, very beautiful card art here. 2 costs for 3,000, counter plus 1,000. Trigger, play this card. We've kind of seen this with all the other colors. She's the one for blue where she has that vanilla trigger, play this card. I don't think she's going to see a lot of players. Not a whole lot of support for either Punk Hazard or Don Quixote Pirates right now. So unfortunately, Monet will be going to the card fodder tier in my opinion. Okay, so next up we have a Mr. 1 Das Bone. So this is a 2 cost 3,000 counter plus 1,000 ability. He has a Baroque Works keyword trait. Dawn times 1 on your turn. If your leader has the Baroque Works type, this character gains plus 1,000 power for every 2 events cards in your trash. So obviously, kind of the same deal with Miss All Sunday. Das Bones will keep getting stronger as you have more events in your discard pile. On a typical game, you're probably not going to have maybe like, I would say 4 to 6 in your events in your trash. I guess it depends on what the deck you're building at, but I think that's kind of the maximum that you'll realistically see. And so you'll probably boost Das Bones up to like maybe a 5,000, 6,000 at best. So 2 costs to get him up there to that amount of power, very significant. He is only only relevant when you have the Crocodile leader. So I think I'm going to put him in the same tier with Miss All Sunday. I think he's going to see a lot of play in that Baroque types deck. And that's really the only turn that we're going to really see him in is in those decks. So for that, we'll just put him in A tier. But overall, a very powerful ability. Next up, we have Mr. 2 Bon Clay. 3 costs for 4,000 power. Counter plus 2,000. Plus 2,000, always great to see. Dawn times 1 when attacking. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal 1 Baroque Works type event and add it to your hand. Place the rest of the cards at the bottom of the deck in any order. This is a very powerful card, only because it has plus 2,000 counter, and he's not shoehorned into being in any type of leader. You can play him in any blue or blue-purple leader right now, and as long as you're running Baroque Works events, and you might be running quite a few of them, depending on how many you're running, you're probably going to want to include a lot of copies of him, just because he has that flexibility of 1, having the plus 2,000 counter, and 2, being able to fish some events out of your opponent, out of your deck while attacking your opponent for 5,000. So for me, Bon Clay is easily going to be an S tier character. We're going to put him up here right next to Boa Hancock, and we're going to see who we got going on next and that is Mr. 3 Galdino. 2 cost for 3,000 power, counter plus 1,000. On play, if your leader has the Baroque Works type, one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4 or less cannot attack until your opponent's next end of turn. So that was kind of a mouthful, but basically you get to choose a character that skips a turn of attacking, and that's actually pretty powerful, especially if you're going for something where your opponent's trying to play and they're trying to go for a really big attack, and you just stop them in their tracks for the character they just played in hand, and then on the next turn when you have more Dawn on your field, you play some bouncing you play some bounce abilities to bring them back into their hand, making their turns go even slower, and they have to replay those cards. Galdino for me is a very fun card. Because he has that restriction of having the leader with the Baroque Works card, and I think you're gonna see also other cards being prioritized over Galdino or Mr. 3. I think he's going to be probably in the B tier. I'm not sure if he'll see a whole lot of play. I know I personally love using him, but even when I'm using him, I kind of only maybe put like 1-2 copies at most, and then even then I kind of question myself as to whether or not he's kind of worth, just because he's a 3,000 power. So he's you kind of have to put some resources into him if you want to have him as an attacker, unless he's attacking smaller characters too. But for now, we're gonna put him in B tier. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the event cards. The first one we have is Overheat. 2 cost. It is a counter. Your leader or one of your characters gains plus 4,000 power during this battle. Then return one active character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. Okay. Plus 4,000, very standard with a 2 cost. Plus 4,000 is going to be very powerful. Then you get to return an active character with a cost of 3 or less. So it's going to be one of those blockers, one of those smaller support characters. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of offensive 3 cost or less characters are going to use this in. I think Overheat on paper, it sounds really good, but in practice, I think there's going to almost not seem worth it to play. I mean, obviously, it is kind of worth it to play just because you're blocking, and then 2, you're going to be bouncing a character. But sorry, it does have a trigger as well. Return one character with cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. Obviously, the trigger is really good. Playing this for 2 cost, even if you have Crocodile for 1 cost, it's kind of an awkward play. I think people, when they put Overheat in their deck, they kind of wish they had some other events, to be honest. At least that's what I've been seeing. Overheat will definitely see some play. I don't know if it's as good as some of the other events, but for now, I'll just put it in B tier. I think Overheat is a little underwhelming in practice, but we'll see how that pans out later. Because next up, we have another event card, and that is... Wait, did I just skip one? No. Yeah, I did skip one. Sorry. Officer Agents. Officer Agents is a 2 cost. It is also a counter. Play 1 Baroque type character card with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. It has a trigger. Activate this card's counter effect. Officer Agents is another weird one. If you don't have Crocodile out, who is a 7 cost, and then put a 1 Dawn on him, then this is just a 2 cost to get, at best, you'd want to play this to get Miss All Sunday or Mr. 3, because they're both 3 cost characters. You save yourself 1 Dawn. Outside of that, it's kind of not really worth it, especially if you don't have the super rare Crocodile out. So Officer Agent's a little bit underwhelming, probably not useless. I don't think it's card fodder, but I think it's somewhere around B tier is where I would put it at personally. It's definitely going to see some play. I don't know if it's as good as some of the other cards though. Next up, we have Desert Spada. So Desert Spada, 1 cost only. Counter, your leader or one of your characters gains plus 2,000 power during this battle. Very good. Plus 2,000 is always great to see. Then look at the 3 cards from the top of your deck and return them to the top or bottom in any order. On a trigger, you get to draw 2 cards and trash 1 card from your hand. Overall, this is an amazing card. Plus 2,000 is usually the magic number that you want to always see when you're countering and blocking. Only a 1 cost, so that's very good. And you get to manipulate the top 3 cards of your deck. The trigger is also really good too. So for all those reasons, Desert Spada easily S tier, very relevant in all these blue decks that are going on here. So we're gonna put Desert Spada up here to S tier in my opinion. Okay, so next up we have another event card here, and that is Crescent Cutlass. Crescent Cutlass is a 3-cost event, very costly, especially for blue. Counter, if your leader has the 7 Warlords of the Sea type, return 1 character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. So this is actually um, kind of almost like a replacement for Sables, right? Or Sables. Sables was a 4-cost to return a 7-cost or less to their hand. This is a 3-cost to return a 5-cost or less to the hand. I don't think Sables was. I mean, Sables was easily worth it if you can get a 7 or a 6-cost back into the hand. But most of the time, a lot of characters that you're encountering are going to be 5-cost or less, especially early on in the game. And so for a 3-cost to return one of them is a lot better than investing 4 Dawn than Sables. Crescent Cutlass, probably not the automatic S tier type, but I think it's going to see a whole lot of play over some of these other events that we've seen. So I'm going to put Desert Cutlass over to the A tier. I think it's a really good card. It's going to see a whole lot of play. So last but not least is our last event card, and that is the Baroque Works. This is a 1-cost main ability, so you get to play it on your turn. Look at the 5 cards on the top of your deck, reveal 1 Baroque Works type card other than Baroque Works, this event card, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a very powerful search ability, especially if you're running Baroque Works decks. It is shoehorned to Baroque Works, but when you're playing any decks that has those traits, it's going to see a whole lot of play. So I think it's going to go along into A tier with the like we saw with Miss All Sunday and with Mr. One. And that is going to wrap it up for our blue tier list. I'm going to go ahead and leave the screen up here so you guys can see how that is and summarize what we just did today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and please comment down below. Let me know if you got anything wrong over here, if you agree, disagree with anything that I put here in the tier list, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.